Bring our two guest authors up to the stage. Don't you guys feel so official? Like you're really walking on a TCA stage right now?
There you go.
There we are. Hey, how are you guys doing?
Yeah. Doing good. How are you?
Doing well, thank you. Thank you so much for joining us. We just had Candy join us a few months ago, but Crystal, you are now in the hot seat for the first time. I'm so excited to have you join us. Let's just get started right off the bat and say how you guys know each other.
Well, thank you for having me, by the way.
You're welcome.
I fell in love with her child. He kind of stalked me, but he got me. So I met Candy through my husband. She's my mother-in-law. Mm-hmm. Yeah, she's like one of my best friends now. So
I love that.
I feel the same way.
It's easy to fall in love with Candy for sure.
Yeah.
Aw, yeah. Thanks, guys.
Yeah. Well, so I want to talk a little bit about like sort of the I don't know where to even start. Like, should we start with the challenges of writing with, you know, someone that you are incredibly close with and do really love? And like, I have written a book with Candy and I know how wonderful that process is. So I'm curious for you, Crystal, can you talk a little bit about like what sparked the idea, how you got involved, and like what you were, what your experience working with Candy was like? And then Candy, I'll have you do the same.
Yeah. We were sitting around in the living room and we were just talking about a lot of family things, and she said, well, you know, we need something for the girls. And I said, you know what, that's a good idea. And she kind of pitched this idea and I said, yeah. And it started from one idea and then it ended up like, well, wait a minute, you know, I grew up in this, like this, how about this? And that's when it was just, you know, and I couldn't have done it without her. So working with her was great. It was great having someone there like, well, what do we do with this? Like, I don't know how to do this, or, you know, so I was definitely thrown in to like the best that you could think of, you know, like, yeah. I was very lucky to have someone as established and a great writer as she is to, you know, answer those questions. And we did have a really good team with Tully. So the entire process was just a dream. Like, you know, there were some snags where we couldn't agree on some things, but I mean, there was less of those and more of all the good things.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, I agree. She doesn't know it, but I thought I was gonna lose her, and then we didn't, and it's awesome, and she's great, and she's fine. But I thought I'm gonna have to raise these little girls with Jeff, and I want them to know themselves and see themselves represented in things. And I felt that responsibility since they were born. Actually, since Crystal brought me some grandkids with her, right? So I was super lucky in that way. They're all big now and grown, but I still think of them as like little kids. And then we have the littles, the two littles, as we call them. But I was like, I want stories for them, right? And Crystal, every time I go over there, you know, we talk about different things, and she learns about our family and funny things about Jeff, and I learn about her, funny things about her family, and it was just a great mesh of those things. Like, I can't even remember. And then we talked to my agent. She's like, oh my gosh, that's a great idea. And she signed Crystal on, like she liked the idea so much. And then Jane Porter actually reached out about Christmas novels. She's a publisher at Thule. And I told her, I just emailed her. I was like, hey, Crystal and I are doing a so-and-so. And we actually did it for someone else, a different publisher who had asked for exactly what we did. Okay. I love working with Thule so much that when Jane was like, oh gosh, yes. And then she and Sinclair, our editor, really helped us mold this story into
Mhm.
something that was super fresh, you haven't seen before. And then we just sort of took it from there. And as far as the process goes, you know how I am. I'm pretty easygoing most of the time,
Mhm.
but when I stick to my guns, you know,
You better,
met
yeah,
me.
you better get in
Yeah.
line when that happens.
Yeah, but when Crystal was, there were a couple of phrases and things, and she's like, "Mom, I don't even know what that means." And then I knew, well, that might be dated or, you know, something like that. You know, and so I did change those things. And there was only one real thing that we fought about. I can't even remember what it was, but I ended up changing it in the end because I felt like, you know, this is really generated from her stories. It's been very morphed from there, but it generated from her stories, and so she should get final say. So she got final say.
That's awesome. That's so cool. So let's dig a little bit into the story. And is this going to be like the first of a series? Do you guys know?
Probably.
Sweet.
We've been talking about it,
Yeah.
and we've been asked about it quite a lot,
Yeah.
especially the last few weeks. And so I think it's a story that hit really hard with people and reviewers. Like I don't know about Crystal, but I wasn't expecting all these 5-star reviews because I thought, you know, it's a sweet Christmas story and it's different, it's kind of fun, and yeah, so I was not expecting, but I think family is a big part of it, and people are really connecting with that.
Yeah.
So go ahead, Crystal. I'm sorry.
Yeah, please.
No, that's fine. No, I agree. And that was really like for the story. I was just like, it's family, you know, family's got to be number one. This is, you know, so yeah. And yes, I was goosebumps all over when those reviews came in. I was just like, oh my gosh. And I was messaging her like, oh my gosh, look at this.
Yeah,
and she's
so
like
cool.
messaging me like, oh my gosh. And I just wanted something inclusive, you know. I wanted readers to just feel like yeah.
And I think it was so important to be able to see yourself and your kids reflected in something mainstream. Like that's so crucial and important. Can you tell us, Crystal, a little bit about the story, what readers can expect in A Santa Fe Christmas?
Again, family, and then so Christmas, family, and love is how I would put it in. You know, Evie, she went and she had this dream job, and they have a factory that was in the family for hundreds of years. We'll say 100 years.
A tortilla factory. Yeah.
A tortilla factory, yes. And so she came back home to help, you know, she wanted to just modernize it because it had been in the family for so long, and she's got a big brain, and she's you know, she's been in New York working big things, you know, so she's like, I want to do this for my family. And you know, her grandma has other ideas, but she doesn't know. So then she meets Alex, which I in my mind, he's just like, oh, I love my husband, but
you can also love Alex. It's okay.
Yeah, who doesn't have book boyfriends?
Right? Oh, I want to know what your book boyfriends are for sure.
But yeah, and you know, there's a big secret, and I don't know if we should, like, I don't know how much to tell.
Don't tell the secret.
Yeah, I was like, you're doing great.
Yeah, don't tell the secret. But basically, he gets to experience Christmas through Evie's family, which is something he has not experienced in a very long time. And that's a big part of the story. And it's more than, you know, showing a guy Christmas kind of thing. It's showing a guy family and those connections and how that works. And of course, there's a little touch of romance. It's a very slow burn, I'm not going to lie, but there's a lot of sexual tension. But Alex has a big secret, and that could ruin everything. So there's quite a bit of conflict there as well.
What were some Latin traditions that you were like, it was very important for you to include in the book? Oh, did you hear that, Crystal?
I'm having technical difficulties. I'm sorry.
No problem.
What was?
The question was, what were some like Latin traditions or traditions that you were like very adamant about putting into the book and making sure that readers got to experience in this first one?
Well, for my family, we didn't have like a normal Christmas dinner. We had tamales. Tamales was a thing. Buñuelos, which that's New York. That's more of a New Year's thing, but in my family, we started it in December. We had it for Christmas and we had it for New Year. Just getting around and talking with family, that was a big thing. We went to mass. We had mass. We had Christmas Eve mass, and we would come home from mass, and because it was technically Christmas, we would open our presents.
I love it. Yeah.
I really wanted that in there. Christmas was always magical for me, even though mom and dad didn't have a lot to give. They always made Christmas like I never knew, so I wanted that to be a big feel. I wanted people to feel that Christmas love.
Yeah.
So yeah.
We that's something we have in common, right? I have humble beginnings as well, and I mean, my parents are doing quite well now, but back then when I was a kid, like I was so surprised every Christmas, I can't even tell you. And it's not really about gifts, it's just about the experiences. And so we try to give a lot of Crystal's experiences with her family, sitting around with her tias, her aunts, and making tamales and things, having a big gathering with just friends and everyone, right? That was something that we wanted to put in. The way her family pitches in and helps out. Oh, goodness. Sorry. The way her family pitches in and helps out with things. There were just, and food. There are actual, if you need good recipes for the holidays, there are actual recipes in this book from Crystal's mom, which no one else has seen except for her family. So man, it's a big deal. And they are, oh my, I got chills. Her mom's gone now. I loved her mom. She was a quiet lady, but man, she was down to business. She didn't let anything get past her, and I just loved her. And she could cook. Like every time she came up, we're all like, well, we'll put a meal together. Crystal's like, don't bother, she's gonna want to cook it all. And sure enough, that's what happened. And she made the best food. Like I oh my gosh, best enchiladas, all of that. And I was like, oh, this is what it's supposed to taste like. And I consider myself a connoisseur of Tex-Mex,
Absolutely.
Yeah, but yeah, so we try to put all of those things in the book, including the recipes. And like you said, she had to fight her family to be able to put these in, because they're like, those are ours.
Like I was like, my dad is still here with us, and he's really up in age. Like I grew up and people thought he was my grandpa, that my parents were my grandparents. So, oh
my goodness.
So I was like, I talked to my family and they were like, and I said, I'm not going to give everything away. There's a real chef keeps some. Yeah, there's some recipes that like my mom makes. It's not salsa, it's called chile. And people would buy it by the gallon from her. My mom had restaurant my entire upbringing, and people would buy it from her. People would drive just to come eat her food, and that was one of the things I was like, I'm not going to put that in there because I'm the only one that can make it. Out of all of my siblings, I have, I'm gonna have to count on my finger. No, I have five. I have two brothers and three sisters, and I'm the baby.
Oh my God, there's so many.
So yeah, I'm the only one that can make it, and I'm like, I'm not putting that in there, I promise. And they were just like, you better not. And I'm like, I promise. They're like, Dad would get you, and I'm like, I'm gonna be okay.
Yeah, you just save that for a cookbook in your mom's honor in a few, in a few years when it's ready.
And the other big thing about this story is we put a lot of Santa Fe in a lot of Santa Fe traditions that fit with Crystal's tradition. And the funny thing about it being in Santa Fe is that's what the other publisher wanted. And because we had thought about doing it in Texas, but then when we told Jane about it, she so loves Santa Fe, we were like, okay, well, we'll just leave it in Santa Fe. But then I had to do a research trip, which was really hard.
I want to know about your research trip.
So, but anyway, so we mix all of that up and it's really fun. Like I learned a lot. I love that doing this book. I learned a lot about Crystal and her family and food and how that's, food is love kind of thing. That's the same in my family, unfortunately. But, that's what we celebrate with is food, right? But I learned so much about that and traditions that I didn't know about. I'm still asking about traditions. I'm like, you guys have so many more cool holidays than we do. And so I'm glad I get to celebrate those with my grandkids now.
Yep.
So.
Absolutely. So speaking of the holidays and Christmas and all the great stuff, have you guys been getting into any Christmas movies, or is there any go-to Christmas movie that you love to watch? I'll start with you, Candy.
Oh, y'all, I love Home Alone. That's my favorite Christmas movie. I'm not gonna lie. It makes me, every time he steps on those tacks on that tar or those
comedy
nails
gold
sticking up, I can't laugh. I cannot breathe. I laugh so hard. I was sitting in the theater 31 years ago. That's when that movie came out, laughing so hard. People were staring at me. I was by myself. I didn't know if it was an okay movie for my kids. So I went to check it out. And people were looking at me like, what? I could not stop laughing. And to this day, it makes me laugh. So I know it's a weird one, but I love Home Alone.
I have known you for so long. And I know how much you love Christmas, and I had no idea that you and I had such a connection over the comedy gold that is that scene in Home Alone. There's nothing funnier than that. That is like, when I think of comedy, that is like, you've got to be as funny as Kevin McAllister just destroying the wet bandits. Like that is so funny.
The fire on the head and sticking his head in it.
So good.
Come on, I almost peed my pants laughing at that. Sorry.
I saw that movie 5 times in the theater because I just wanted to watch that scene over and over again. Love it. Okay.
I'm right there with you. Go ahead, Crystal.
Crystal, sorry.
Well, mine is Elf. I love Elf. I love Will Ferrell. I love just, that's the spirit of Christmas. So that for me, I like the funny parts. I love, it has, heartfelt parts. So it has it all. I love it. And of course we have to watch the Grinch with the children. So
that's my second favorite. The old cartoon one though. Okay. The old cartoon one, not the Jim Carrey one.
No,
sorry, Jim Carrey.
Or who was it? There's also like the second animated one that came out
from
a couple years ago.
Wasn't that a Peele? What's his name?
Maybe.
Did Jordan Peele do that one?
No, I mean,
I don't think so.
No,
but there was one because my girls did like that one, and I remember watching it, and I was like,
can't beat the original, just like Home Alone.
The original.
And we were just talking about Home Alone, Mom. I guess there's a third one.
There's a new one coming on.
New
Disney.
Reboot. Yeah.
Yeah. Dane was like, "Why?
Also, it just doesn't work.
I watched it.
Did you like it
again? Yeah.
Did you like it?
I'll watch it again. Yeah.
He's like, why are they British? This doesn't make any sense. Dane.
Oh man. Yeah, I keep with that one. I keep being like, the premise doesn't work as well now with like cell phones and like supposed to pay attention to your kids. Like, just how did you get all the way to the airport without, well, we'll find out eventually. So I want to know, since it is interesting that you didn't set out to set a Santa Fe Christmas in Santa Fe, intentionally, you wanted to make it Texas, but being the land of enchantment, New Mexico is incredibly magical and incredibly enchanting. Can you talk a little bit about some of the enchanting things about Santa Fe and what especially Candy, since you got to go on your research trip, I'd love to hear some of your stories from that.
Well, the people there are just so nice. And of course, I was there sort of during COVID, so it wasn't busy at all. I basically have the town to myself, my husband and I, and it just, it has a different look. It has those adobe buildings, and like it's very artsy, which I just love. And that's part of what we brought forward and we tried to put as many of their celebrations as we could into it. I wasn't there at Christmas. I was there in early spring. But I just absolutely loved it there. And just, I try to put the architecture, all of that. And it was funny. I had it in my head. And then when I saw it, I was like, I got it most right, because I'd already written the book, but we were in edits. So I knew I would have a chance to go back and change. And so it was like, I had been there probably 20 years ago, but I have my brain and I couldn't remember a lot. And so, so it was kind of fun. And my husband, I thought he'd be like, but he loved it. He loved it as well. And so I think we got the feel of Santa Fe in this book. And that was just sheer dumb luck.
Oh man, I love New Mexico in general because their food, you get sopapillas as like a bread.
Yeah.
It's like right? the greatest thing in the world. I'm like, you don't have to have sopapillas as dessert. You can have it for all the meals.
And all of their food is like served Texas style. Like you get so much on there. It's like you have some for today, tomorrow, and maybe next week.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
I love it so much. It's so funny. All right. So well, I already asked you about your traditions. So I just let's just play some fun, fresh facts. It's very hard to say, easy for me to say. It's not easy for me to say at all. Crystal, who was your first book boyfriend or girlfriend?
Oh, well, that's really hard. I didn't start off in romance.
That's okay.
So, and it's going to sound weird, but can it be an author?
Sure. Their name's on the book. It works.
Yeah. So I started reading R.L. Stine.
Oh,
not Goosebumps. No, I was reading the Fear Street.
Yes, Fear Street's the best.
So yeah, so I was reading Fear Street. I would read the same title over and over again. I don't know why. I just loved it. And then I switched to Stephen King. So I like the weird ones, I guess.
She looks so sweet and innocent. Not so much.
I know. She's like, no, I got, hanging out with the horror geniuses over here.
All into the horror. Yeah.
All into that horror.
So yeah, that was really hard. Like, we're going to write romance. Okay. Yeah, okay. I can do this.
Did you give yourself a crash course on romance at that point?
So I like Nora Roberts. I read Nora Roberts. So she's got a little bit of the romance, but she's also got that, thriller.
Right.
So yeah, I do, and I worked at Entangled. So I was kind of surrounded by it
at that point, right? Yeah.
So I had like a 3-year crash course in romance. So yeah, I did have that.
That's awesome. Candy, what is your favorite your favorite holiday? Could be anything from now until the end of the year. Holiday snack.
Well, Christmas is my favorite holiday, and I like the sugar cookies. I even like fruit cake. I like peppermint bark. I will make myself sick on it. I'll eat so much. I like all the Christmas. I just found, my aunt found, thanks to my cousin Laura and cousins Laura and Becky, they got my aunt to find my grandma's old bourbon ball recipes, which I love those bourbon balls. And they're just like sweet with that kick of bourbon. And it's so good. And there's a little bit of coconut in there. So they got me that recipe and her Mississippi mud cake, which we call Texas mud cake recipe. So I'm hoping I can make some of those because they're good.
That sounds amazing.
Whether they make it to other people remains to be seen.
Right. That's up to them, really. If they just happen to be around on the night that you're making bourbon balls.
There you go.
Crystal, what's your favorite holiday snack?
I like Thanksgiving.
Okay.
Thanksgiving is my favorite. I like Christmas too, but we get the same food. At least
right.
Now.
This is kind of a repeat.
Yes. So I like the stuffing. I don't know. I love the stuffing. And then so when I met Jeff and we were going to have our first holiday together, he was like, oh, you've got to try these cheesy green beans. And I was like, ew, that does not sound good at all. He's like, no, I know it doesn't, but it's really good. It's really good. And finally, I'm hooked. Cheesy green beans it is.
Yeah, the Havens brought that to the family, and I was just like, that's disgusting, but it tastes really good. It's basically Velveeta cheese, sour cream, and green beans. It's just, it's got something else in it I can't remember, but it's pretty good. I have to tell you something funny that also relates to our book about Crystal. So we're having our first Christmas, and I'm excited because I have grandkids to buy for, and it's so fun.
Yeah,
and Christmas is my favorite, and I do a big thing on Christmas Eve. And so I asked Crystal, what are some of your traditions? And she's like, well, I don't expect you to like do what we did. And she just told you like they do tamales and all that. And so she told me, she's like, well, we do tamales and, sort of more Mexican food. And I was like, that's what we've been doing for 30 years every Christmas Eve, because I don't want to eat turkey twice, And so when I took over Christmas Eve from my mom, and she used to have sandwiches and stuff because, nobody wants to eat the same meal twice.
Right.
So,
absolutely.
Yeah. And so my dad gets tamales from this guy, and, it's like that. And so.
And I make enchiladas.
Yes. Yes. Oh my gosh. Her chicken enchiladas are so good. Maybe we'll put those in the next book.
Yes. Getting, just fueling the cookbook, you guys.
Yeah.
It's the thing. All right. Well, we have, before I turn this over for our readers to ask you some questions off camera, I wanted to ask you guys how readers can stay in touch with you and find out more about you. Let's start with Candy, and I'll go to Crystal. Or I guess we can do it together since it's.
Yeah. So Crystal, you tell them about the Facebook page.
Yes.
So Cecelia has a Facebook page. That's our author page. And that's really all I've started. This is all new to me. So you can catch us there. And Mom, of course, has hers. Go ahead, Mom.
So everything's on my CandaceHavens.com site. I'm on all I'm on Instagram. It's Candace_Havens. On Twitter, it's just Candace Havens. On Facebook, it's Candace Havens Author. And then you can get to our Cecelia Guzman page through that as well. And just real quick on the Cecelia Guzman, for Crystal, it would have been fine to use her name, Crystal Havens, but I have so many books and such a big backlist that business-wise, I didn't want to have anything like that on this book. Does that make sense? Like it was really hard for us, but because I didn't want what I'd done in the past. Like if somebody reads this book and it's super sweet and then they go find a sexy book of mine, same reason I did a pseudonym with you, right? For
Absolutely.
our YA. So, and my agent and the publisher, they all thought it was a good idea for us just to use one name and do these books under one name. And so Cecelia is a mishmash of Crystal and mine's name. And then the Guzman is a nod to her birth mother. She was raised by an adoptive mom, but she had a lovely birth mother who I'm so grateful to for bringing her in the world, because she is a shining light, you guys, like nobody you've ever met. The biggest heart, just she's so much more patient than I am. Like, and I've learned a lot from her about just loving family, you know, for who they are, kind of thing. I just think that if everybody did what I said, life would be great. But Crystal's that way too, to a certain extent, and she's usually right. But I've learned a lot from her, and she's just such a sweetheart that I kind of hope we get to do more books. Do what?
You're gonna make me cry.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'll shut up now.
No, that was so sweet. Oh, you guys, I love this big love fest. It's like the holidays are here already. Thank you to the amazing tag team that is behind Cecelia Guzman, Candace Havens, and Crystal Havens. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. It's lovely.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you for having us.